Just imagine, what if all the talent of your favorite player were to suddenly transfer into you, leaving that poor guy completely talentless and useless? Something very similar happens in our story today. At the beginning of the tale, we meet a 16-year-old boy named Brian. It had been his childhood dream to become a basketball player, but despite working incredibly hard, he failed to make it onto his school's team, the Eagles. Consequently, he was assigned the job of handing out towels and water bottles to the team's players. One day, Brian was watching a basketball match featuring his absolute favorite player, Kevin. Kevin repeatedly sank the ball into the net, scoring numerous points and leading his team to victory, a feat that left Brian deeply impressed. That very day, he made a solemn promise to himself. He, too, would become an exceptional player, just like Kevin. Fueled by this newfound josh, Brian began practicing with great enthusiasm, attempting time and again to shoot the ball into the net. However, each time, he would end up falling flat on his face. Meanwhile, as Kevin was leaving after winning the match, he was mobbed by a crowd of reporters and fans. Just then, his agent, Alan, stepped in to rescue him from the throng and escort him to safety. The following day at school, Brian was chatting with his best friend Mitch when they spotted a new girl named Isabel walking past. The moment he laid eyes on her, Brian's heart began to race, and he started grinning like a complete fool. At that very moment, Isabel looked back at him and offered a smile of her own. Later, during lunch, Brian found himself staring at Isabel once again. Mitch then tried to reason with him, warning him not to get obsessed with Isabel, as the entire school considered her a loser. Brian, however, retorted, "But she's new here, isn't she? She doesn't know any of that yet." Consequently, he resolved to talk to Isabel as soon as possible. Just as a troublemaker named Connor suddenly started playing a video on the cafeteria TV. In that video, Brian was attempting to execute a jump like Kevin's with the help of a trampoline. However, he ended up crashing straight into the net. Upon seeing this, all the children began laughing and making fun of Brian, which left him feeling very embarrassed. He quietly walked away, and Isabel felt quite bad for him. Later, while Brian sat at home feeling dejected, his father approached him and presented him with a gift, 2 tickets to a basketball game. Upon seeing them, Brian was absolutely thrilled. Soon, Brian arrived at the arena with his father to watch the match. There, watching his favorite player, Kevin, play with incredible skill, Brian was overjoyed. Then during the halftime break, the host announced that one lucky person from the audience would get the chance to take a basketball shot. Shortly thereafter, the winner's name was called out, and it was none other than Brian's father. However, like any devoted father, instead of fulfilling his own dream, he handed the ticket to his son and sent him out onto the court. When Brian stepped onto the court, the host explained that if he managed to sink the shot, he would win a prize of $200. At that moment, Brian noticed that the very same boy, the one from the corner, was standing in the audience with his camera ready to record a video of him. Well, Brian took the shot, but instead of hitting the target, the ball struck the team mascot standing nearby. A mortified Brian was just about to retreat from the court when he suddenly crossed paths with Kevin. Kevin offered him words of encouragement and, as a gift, signed a basketball with his autograph and handed it to him. Brian could barely contain his excitement upon meeting his favorite player. He remarked, "I wish I possessed talent like yours, Kevin." To this, Kevin replied, "Hard work beats talent." As he said this, he handed the basketball to Brian, and suddenly, a surge of energy seemed to flow from the ball and into Brian. The next morning, when Brian woke up, he heard on the radio that Kevin had played very poorly after the halftime break the previous day, resulting in his team's defeat. Hearing this made Brian feel a bit sad, but he got ready and headed off to school. Then in the evening, Mitch went to a fair where Connor and Isabel were also present. Connor was trying to win a large teddy bear for Isabel by tossing a ball into a net, but despite numerous attempts, he remained unsuccessful. Upon seeing this, Brian and Mitch burst into loud laughter. Angered by their reaction, Connor handed the ball to Brian and challenged him, saying, "All right then, you give it a try. Let's see you do it." At first, Brian feared he would only end up embarrassing himself. However, with the moment he threw the ball, it struck the target dead center, which everyone was stunned by what they saw. They assumed it must have been a mere fluke. However, Brian then proceeded to amaze everyone by sinking shot after shot in rapid succession. At that point, Connor stormed off, muttering angrily to himself, while Brian won the teddy bear and presented it to Isabel. The two then shook hands and began exploring the fair together. Meanwhile, Kevin was practicing basketball, but he was struggling significantly with his shots. Both he and Alan were frustrated by this, as Kevin had suffered a crushing defeat in their previous match. Nevertheless, Alan reassured him, explaining that such setbacks happen to everyone. Back at home, while practicing, Brian realized that his skills had improved dramatically overnight. The next day at school, Brian arrived on the court wearing a basketball jersey. The coach remarked, "You're only supposed to be handling the towels. Why have you shown up wearing a jersey like the rest of the players?" So, Brian expressed his desire to join the team as well. At first, the coach turned him down. However, when Brian persisted with his pleas, the coach gave him a chance to prove himself. Brian was then pitted against Connor, the team captain. He executed his shots with such effortless ease that everyone watching was left completely stunned. Everyone was left wondering what exactly he had eaten that day to be playing like that. The coach then challenged him personally, but Brian defeated him as well. Impressed by his abilities, the coach finally inducted him into the team. Over the next few days, Brian led his team to victory in several matches played against other school teams. He soon became a celebrity within the school, and everyone began vying to become his friend. Brian also grew closer to Isabel, and the two eventually fell in love. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Kevin's game was deteriorating day by day, leading to significant negative publicity in the media. Alan tried his utmost to help Kevin. He even called Kevin's mother in the hope that she could reignite his passion, but alas, it was to no avail. Then one day, Kevin arrived for a basketball shoe commercial shoot, but he couldn't even manage to run while dribbling the ball. He spent several hours attempting to get a single usable take, but he failed repeatedly. Finally, out of exasperation, the director removed him from the commercial entirely. Later, while watching Kevin being ridiculed on TV, Alan changed the channel and stumbled upon a news segment featuring Brian. Witnessing his extraordinary talent, people were already hailing him as the next Kevin Durant. It was then that Alan suddenly recalled that just 4 weeks earlier, this very same boy couldn't even get the ball into the net, let alone make a proper shot, having instead thrown the ball a full 4 kilometers away. He then watched videos of Brian's matches and realized that Brian played in a style that was an exact replica of Kevin's. This led Alan to suspect that Kevin and Brian's powers might have somehow swapped. Later, he spoke to Kevin about this, pointing out that while Brian used to merely hold towels for the other players, he had now become the standout player in the junior tournament. However, Kevin did not believe a word of it and felt that Alan had lost his mind, thinking, "You've gone into shock, buddy." Anyway, the next day, Alan took Kevin to Brian's school and introduced him to Brian. He then forcibly made the two shake hands, hoping that Kevin's talent would be restored to him. Finally, Alan asked them to spend the entire day together. Since they were both such skilled basketball players, Brian and Kevin struck up a lively conversation and shared a meal together. However, despite spending the entire day in each other's company, their powers did not swap, a fact that left Alan feeling deeply troubled. By now, Brian had developed an inflated ego. He began playing entirely for himself, sinking basket after basket without ever passing the ball to anyone else. Although his performance ultimately led his team to victory, his teammates were quite upset, as basketball is fundamentally a team sport. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Kevin was playing in a match where he couldn't seem to land a single shot. Consequently, the spectators and the media began to mock and humiliate him, having never before witnessed anyone play so poorly. Later that evening, Brian hosted a party to celebrate his victory, inviting a large number of children. However, Isabel felt completely out of place and uncomfortable. For Brian was no longer the sweet, lovable boy he used to be. Now he carried himself with an air of pure swagger. Someone suggested to Brian that they should step aside to have a private conversation, but Brian was unwilling to leave his new, cool friends behind. Upset by this, Isabel stormed off and left the scene. Shortly thereafter, Alan arrived at the party and approached Brian. Alan informed him that his powers and Kevin's had somehow been swapped. Brian refused to believe this in the slightest, so Alan challenged him. "Oh, really? Then tell me, how did you suddenly become a superstar athlete overnight? Were you practicing in your sleep?" Alan asked him to return Kevin's talent, but Brian retorted, "Look, man, I didn't do anything on purpose. It just happened, and I'm certainly not giving it back." However, before leaving, Alan told him that it was absolutely wrong to deceive everyone by misusing someone else's talent. The very next day at school, the coach gathered the Eagles team and announced that they were now just one match away from becoming champions. Hearing this, everyone erupted with joy. Later that day, as Brian was riding his bicycle, he spotted a poster of Kevin. He felt a pang of sympathy for Kevin, as the latter had been playing terribly lately, a fact that had caused everyone to turn against him. At that moment, Brian decided that he would return Kevin's talent to him. He called Alan to inform him of his decision. Afterward, the two of them headed to the court where Kevin was currently practicing. Brian and Alan approached him and said, "Here, man, take your powers back." However, Kevin was completely unwilling to believe such a claim. But then Brian demonstrated his abilities, specifically executing Kevin's signature move, a maneuver that only Kevin himself had ever been able to perform. Upon seeing this, Kevin too was somewhat astonished. Following this, they made a concerted effort to swap their skills back. They held the very same ball and recited the exact same words, yet nothing happened. This turn of events left all three of them quite distressed. Eventually, however, Brian went to Isabel's house and apologized to her. Although she was still upset, she forgave Brian and invited him inside. Brian then recounted the entire story of how he and Kevin had accidentally swapped their powers. Hearing this, Isabel could hardly believe it, but then Brian showed her a video recording of that day, capturing the exact moment when it all occurred. The instant she saw her ball striking the team mascot, a light bulb went off in Brian's mind and he bolted out of the house. He headed straight for the basketball court, where Kevin was currently playing a match. He noticed that Kevin's team had yet to score a single point. Brian quickly rushed onto the court and informed Kevin that he had figured out a way to restore Kevin's powers. He explained that he would first throw the ball at their mascot, just as had happened on that fateful day. With that, he threw the ball at the mascot standing nearby, knocking him to the ground. The two of them then grasped the ball, and Kevin remarked, "I wish I possessed talent like yours, Brian." Brian replied, "Hard work beats talent." At that very moment, a surge of energy suddenly flowed from Brian into Kevin, signifying that their plan had succeeded. Soon after, the game resumed and Kevin once again began to play with exceptional skill. He sank shot after shot, leaving the entire audience utterly awestruck. Ultimately, thanks to his efforts, the team secured a victory, a result that left Brian absolutely overjoyed. The very next day, it was Brian's turn to play his final match. However, he knew that this time around, he wouldn't be able to perform well. As the match began, he started stumbling and falling all over the court, just as he had before, a sight that left his coach looking thoroughly exasperated. Just then, Kevin and Alan arrived on the scene, causing Brian to become even more flustered. It was at that moment that he recalled Kevin's words, that hard work can even triumph over raw talent. Gathering his teammates, Brian explained that he wasn't playing well that day, and therefore they would all have to play as a united front. Taking each other's strengths into account, they devised a comprehensive strategy and dove into the game with renewed vigor. Before long, Brian's team had built up a respectable score. However, with just 10 seconds remaining on the clock, they still needed 2 points, and the ball was now in Brian's hands. From where he stood, he attempted a shot to score a three-pointer, and, fortunately, the ball sailed straight into the basket. Ultimately, thanks to Brian's points, they won the match. Afterward, everyone hoisted Brian onto their shoulders in celebration, while Kevin bid him farewell and departed. If you had the chance, which sport would you choose to become a famous player in? Be sure to let us know in the comments.